We have a bit of a conundrum in the UFC's middleweight division as to who could be the next potential challenger for the championship. Dricus du Plessis being the champion, he is faced with the option of either Sean Strickland or Khamzat Chimaev. Both of those guys seem to have a very viable case and a very good quality argument for why they should be the next in line for the championship. And as you can see behind me, there is an artist's rendition, very accurate to scale, and very, very descriptive of these fighters, all behind me, as well as Israel Adesanya, because we're going to use him for some reference as well. As you can see, Dricus du Plessis, he is up here in the purple. He is the champion, as you can tell by the crown on his head there. Du Plessis, of course, he is the champion. He took that title originally from Sean Strickland. He then defended that against one Israel Adesanya. In doing so, he did finish Israel Adesanya, which is an impressive win. We all know about that. So, champion, he's going to fight either. Actually, I need a different colored marker. One moment. We're going to use orange. Okay. He's going to fight either Sean Strickland in a rematch, which we'll talk about in a moment, or Khamzat Chimaev. Now, the reason this is important to look at this for. So the reason this is important to look at is because Sean Strickland fought Dricus du Plessis once before. That is how du Plessis got the title. As you see here, I have the little plus minus sign. If you're familiar with my channel, you know that I use those often to indicate something that is sometimes good and sometimes bad. This is kind of a similar situation. It is a neutral note because it is a split decision loss that is extremely close. Often, split decisions kind of have the fans divided, and this one is no different. A lot of people thought Sean Strickland won. He did land more volume in that fight. Other people believed that Dricus du Plessis won because he did land some takedowns in that fight. Now, it seems to be takedowns versus volume. Both guys got hit. Both guys got beat up. Neither guy looked super pretty at the end of the fight. So it was a close split decision. Now, this could say, well, the champion at the time was Sean Strickland. He lost his title in a very close, controversial split decision. The guy deserves a rematch. But at the same time, you can also look at it on the opposite side of the coin saying, Dricus du Plessis already beat Sean Strickland. He doesn't need to beat him again. So it depends what camp you fall in. I'm not going to fault you for either. I'm just here to talk you through the solutions and help that you can come to your own conclusion. I'll give you my opinion at the end, but we're going to try to talk this out and give you the options, give you the details, and you can come to your own conclusion, and you can let me know what that is down in the comments of this video. Now, let's talk about this. So first things first, Israel Adesanya, he has the worst position on this board. Why is that? He's going to be in the highlight reel of 2 out of 3 fighters because du Plessis finished him. Adesanya being a very popular name, widely known by the community, he's going to end up in the highlight reel there. If Strickland somehow gets the title fight, he has a very impressive win over Adesanya, in which he made Adesanya look silly most of the fight, and he's going to end up in Strickland's highlight reel. The only way that Adesanya gets any saving grace is if Khamzat gets in here, and then he's only in half the highlight reels of the fight. So, poor guy, once the long reigning champion is now looking not the greatest in the promotion for the fights, he's been beat by 2 out of the 3 guys on this board, or on this, this side of the board, and that is the bad thing for him. That's why he has the frowny face, as the artist has depicted. Let's go ahead and make the case for these 2 fighters, right? So for Sean Strickland, what are some things that make a good case for him? Well, the first thing that I think that makes the biggest case for him is right here. Dominated Israel Adesanya when he took the title. Why is that important? Well, a dominant win over Izzy is that's hard to do, right? He beat him over 5 rounds, won at least 4, some would say 5 of those 5 rounds. Maybe a 10-8 in the first round, I would say. When du Plessis fought Adesanya, it was back and forth. Yes, du Plessis got the finish, but it was back and forth and it was a close fight. Both guys were landing big shots. Strickland just ran him over, basically, just beat him up, pillar to post the whole fight, and didn't really get hit. He got hit, like it was a fight still, but hardly. So it was an extremely impressive win over 25 minutes. So that's a big case, right? Another thing that makes Sean Strickland good for this, because this is a business. They want pay-per-view sales. They want smooth sailing. He's extremely reliable. Sean Strickland is a guy that if you schedule him to fight, he is going to show up for that fight. You do not have to worry about him getting sick. You do not have to worry about him pulling out. You do not have to worry about him getting injured, because if he does, he'll probably still fight. He doesn't care. This guy is going to show up for the fight. He's going to be there. Another thing that makes it good, Press conference. If you want this guy to bring views to your press conference, he's going to bring views to your press conference. These are all things that the UFC likes. They may not admit that they like Sean Strickland at a press conference, but you know that they love the views that it gets, and that helps people want to buy the pay-per-view. He also is willing to fight often. When you look at Sean Strickland, there was a time, I remember this vividly, he fought on the last card of the year as the headliner in a 25-minute fight, turned around and then fought in the first card of the year and headlined that fight. So the guy is willing to fight. He's the type of guy that if you call him up on short notice and tell him he's got to fly across the world and fight, he's going to do it because he's a company man. Now, right now, he's kind of holding out, waiting for his title shot. I get it. That's a little bit different situation. He did favors for the UFC for a long time, and I'm sure he's willing to do that again if he gets this title shot once he becomes the champion, or even after that if he does not become the champion. He is the type of guy that's willing to fight often. So he's the type of guy that you want to put in there, knowing that if he becomes the champion, he will be willing to fight often. When you need somebody to headline a pay-per-view, you got a champion. When you need somebody that, hey, look, a card fell apart, we need a new matchup for this pay-per-view, Strickland's going to do it. The problem for Strickland, he's not exactly known for exciting fights. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily justified. It's the type of thing where a lot of times his opponents are backing away from him, running from him, or also just like it's not his fault he doesn't let people hit him. Like he has very good defense. That's good. But at the same time, he's not getting a lot of finishes. So I understand that. He has a few. It's been a while. He did knock out Brendan Allen, which was actually super impressive. And in hindsight, that win has aged extremely well. I know Allen lost his last fight, but still, very good win. Also beat the guy who beat Allen. So there is that. But either way, for Sean Strickland, the biggest drawback is the not exciting fights. And that is why I think a lot of fans are on the Khamzat side. Now, let me talk about Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev, things going in his favor. The dude's undefeated. Right there. That alone is huge on a marquee. That is huge when you're promoting a title fight. Undefeated fighter takes on champion. Right there. A tale as old as time. So when you look at Khamzat Chimaev as an undefeated fighter, you can't really doubt that the guy has earned his shot because nobody's beaten him. The other thing that we have going for Chimaev, he absolutely just ran through Robert Whittaker. Now, here's the deal. 3 of the 4 people on this board have faced Robert Whittaker. 3 of the 4 people on this board have beaten Robert Whittaker. 1 of them has beaten him twice, that being Israel Adesanya. So it's not like Whittaker's beating these guys. That said, Chimaev beat him the most impressive by a lot. It wasn't even close. I mean, can you remember a single strike Whittaker landed? I think there was a leg kick. That might have been it, maybe 2. But yeah, no, Chimaev ran through that man. Another thing, he's got aura, as the youngins are saying these days. The guy, he can really captivate an audience. He's got a big fan base in the Middle East, big fan base here in the United States. The guy is very good at drawing attention. Even though on the microphone, he half the time sounds like he's got marbles in his mouth because he's just kind of mumbling, but doesn't matter. The dude captivates an audience. Because when he starts screaming on the microphone, you're going to listen. And then that's how he steals the attention of the audience. But most importantly, he has exciting fights. We've never seen a Khamzat fight that's boring. That's just not something you see. Khamzat Chimaev is an extremely exciting fighter, which is why the fans want to see him in this title shot. However, from a business perspective, what might the UFC be a little bit weary of that? It's potentially unreliable. The guy's pulled out of numerous fights. He's taken long lengths of time off in between fights, most of the time for illnesses or injuries or, whatever it may be. But he's potentially unreliable. And if you have a fight booked between the champion and Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev, and all of a sudden Chimaev pulls out, guess who you're going to have to call? Sean Strickland. So for the UFC, it's tricky because they want to know that they can count on Chimaev before they give him a title shot. And this is the biggest issue for them. Now let me go ahead. I've been talking a while. I'm about to wrap this up. I'm going to give you my opinion, but I'm going to pitch it to you in a way that I think we can all get behind, right? Okay, Khamzat Chimaev just fought. He's not going to be fighting in a month or 2. It's probably looking at least a few months down the road. They've got pay-per-views booked out for a while now. I think they're looking at February maybe as a potential for a title fight for Dricus. Yeah, Chimaev could turn around by February. It's like 4 months away. I don't think he will. What I think we're going to get, and what I think that the UFC wants to do and should do, is you make this fight right here. You make Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. Then, what happens here? You find out who really is the better fighter out of the two, hopefully. Hopefully you don't get another split decision. Hopefully we get either a unanimous decision or somebody gets a finish. Because if we get another split decision, say for Strickland, then we got a problem. And then that muddies the waters. But we're going to assume that we don't get another split. Just for the sake of the argument, okay? In this time, you can book Khamzat Chimaev for another fight right after, say March. Gives him an extra month to prepare. But it also, don't give him anybody, give him somebody that's like a talented fighter, but one you're willing to sacrifice because you know he's going to run through him. And then what does that do? Well, it gives Chimaev a little more relevance in the meantime. That was his first fight over Whitaker in a long time. It gives him another fight, another bit of a relevancy. And then what happens is you've got a bigger name Khamzat, somebody that is getting the fans that are just tuning into the sport. They haven't been there for the last year. They just saw this guy run through Whitaker, and they think Whitaker sucks because they don't know any better. That's not how it works. You got to get them familiar with this guy. Then, once you have these two fight, you got Khamzat at yet another win. Then he fights the winner of these guys in a very huge title fight, probably in October. In October, the reason I say October, come back to Abu Dhabi most likely. That's where Khamzat seems to fight all the time. You know what? You could even actually, if you really wanted to, I do believe they're going to Saudi Arabia in February, and I know Khamzat says he can fight outside of the Middle East. And I know that February is a little bit of a quick turnaround, but if you throw him the right opponent, I bet you could get him on that fight night card in Saudi Arabia and probably put him as a main or a co-main event. Might also be an idea. But my main point that I want to take away is if you book these two together first, and then the winner fights Khamzat, you give Khamzat a little bit of time in between the fight, let him recover a little bit. He's probably fine, but let him recover a little bit. You get these guys settled, and then you don't burn the bridge with Strickland here because if Khamzat Chimaev pulls out, you want to be able to have Strickland as the option, but he ain't going to do that if you tell him he's not going to get the title shot. So that's an option for you there. And then if all else fails and say this fight does go to another split decision and somehow Sean Strickland wins it, you can possibly just run the trilogy. Gosh, that would be rough, though. That would not be what you'd want to do because that would put Chimaev on the chopping block. So there's flaws with my plan. But with that said, let me hear yours. How do you think it should go? How do you think it's best to appease all the fighters in this, to appease the fans, and also sell the most pay-per-view events and tickets sold? That's what I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you stayed around this long, why don't you go ahead and do me that solid and like this video? I do appreciate it greatly. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.